Assalamu alaikum. That is, may God's peace be upon you. Welcome back to the Power of Educating Our Own. This is a show hosted by the Clara Mohammed Schools Network, where we discuss all aspects of educating children in our own community for optimal development and productivity. And I am one of your hosts, Sister Marcia from Newark, New Jersey, and I'm here with
Patricia Salhuddin from Miami, Florida, and welcome. We're so happy to have you.
And Quran Shakir from the ATL. All three of us serve on the board of the Clara Mohammed Schools Network.
Okay, so Quran, tell us what we'll be discussing.
And we again welcome you. Go ahead.
No, there's a little lag. I was going to say,
I'm
tell us
very
what we'll be
excited about today's program. Yes, you know, with the Clara Mohammed Schools, we have almost 20 schools in our network. And for years, we have been functioning trying to use fish fries and bake sales and special activities to raise money to fund our schools. And it's not working. Our schools are struggling. And now today, on today's program, we're looking at how can we be more sustainable in how we fund our schools. Ladies and gentlemen, get out your pen and pencils, get out your questions, get ready, because we want to grow beyond just fish fries and bake sales and annual banquets. Get ready. Welcome to the Power of Educating Our Own.
Okay, and so today we have a few guests with us, and I guess we'll start with Sister Vicky. I don't have her bio in front of us. I think Sister Quran has it, and so if you want to read it, feel free to bring her in.
Well, what I wanted to say about all three of our guests is that they were selected because of what they do. And all of them are business people, entrepreneurs, and financial managers who help people to grow by investing. And so we can start with Victoria Abdurrahman, who is a financial investor. And I really want to begin with her because I want her to help us understand the concept of money and how money functions and why we should even be looking at this idea of moving beyond the fish fries and the bake sales.
Is that my key to chime in and say assalamu alaikum? And I'm so happy to be here. And hello.
That's you.
Good evening. Good afternoon to some. I am happy to be here. And thank you, Sister Quran, for inviting me to be part of this amazing opportunity and to allow me to share some insight in this platform in something I'm deeply passionate about, my community, which is why I moved here in 2003 to grow my children in a loving community, because that's what's important to me. So I'm very, very happy to be here.
Great. And so we want to know.
So to everybody.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Khan. There's a little lag, so sometimes we don't catch each other. But go ahead, Khan.
Oh, wait. When she says I moved here, she moved to Atlanta. So Vicky, we have viewers and listeners from all over the country and Bermuda tuned into our program because that's where our schools are, all over the United States and Bermuda. Go ahead.
Okay. So
Marcia,
let me take it back. I was born and raised in New York. For all my New York folks out there, Buffalo, New York, go Bills. But I moved to California to work on my craft as a child actress. Later started singing with Whitney Houston. So I have a very vast background. You know, I was really an entertainer. But once I had my second child, my husband, who is from Atlanta, we decided we wanted to raise our children in a Muslim community, which is why we decided to move to Atlanta in 2003 to raise our kids. I just loved coming to the Atlanta Masjid. I always felt at home. And I wanted my children to take part in that. And I wanted them to feel that love. Later, my husband became the basketball coach of the Lady Khalief's basketball team, then later on the boys. So that community, the school, W. Mohammed and Clara Mohammed means everything to us. One of my children actually graduated from there in 2020. So, I mean, it's our everyday mission to just make things better. And personally, we found a way to achieve that goal, inshallah. But my mission today is to impart with each of you how you too can leave a legacy and do your part. If you feel obligated in any kind of way, such as I, to do something, I hopefully will leave with you the how to do something. What can you do with what you have, where you are? That's the goal for today.
Wonderful. And so, talk to us about your background in finance and some ideas for how to finance our schools, because that's really one of the pain points for many of our schools, right? We have good intentions, we have good hearts, we want to see the big vision come to life, and then money comes up and nobody knows what to do. So tell us, what are some possible solutions?
So many of you, depending on your age, may know the family, the Rockefellers. A lot of us know the Kennedys, but for most people, they know who the Rockefellers are and what they've done in America. So the Rockefellers, for those of you who don't know, it's a family, a name, and they're really wealthy, and they pretty much ran the show. And how they ran the show was being able to sustain wealth that transcended their lifetime, another lifetime, and another lifetime. So pretty much they wanted to ensure that their name stayed afloat and that they had the power by way of resources to make moves. And they knew in order to make moves, they had to have the money to do it. So what did they do? They used life insurance to create a self-perpetuating strategic plan to keep the money in the family. And it's called the waterfall method. And other families, the Vanderbilts, other families tried to do it, but they allowed life in their extravagant ways to dilute the resources. So it began to dissipate. It didn't last long. And then the families became bankrupt and they had no more money, but the Rockefellers did it best. And so my mission is to educate people on how can we use this vehicle called life insurance, whole life, not term. How can we use a vehicle such as whole life and format it in a way where it will be self-perpetuating? It can be used as an endowment, which is just giving a donation and a contribution that will transcend your life. How can that be used as a legacy vehicle to ensure that the passions we have for our institution and the love we have for our children, family, and community will transcend beyond our lifetime? Because for me, listeners, I want to ensure that all the work that I'm doing is not in vain, that it will live beyond me, and my great, great, great grandchildren will speak of me and know that I did my part. Because I truly believe we have to stay united and we have to feel a sense of obligation to make things better than the way we found them.
So, Sister Vicky,
That's
so when you're talking, are you talking to that parent? Are you talking to the teacher? Are you talking to the school principal? You know, when you're talking about the life insurance, who would be your targeted?
I am speaking to every person that is an adult and able to pay premiums that can fog a glass, that is living above ground. Mm-hmm. If you are living and breathing and healthy enough to become insured, it makes the most sense to try to get insurance and leaving just a portion of it to the school or anything you're passionate about that can make a life of some other child by way of funding a tuition, by way of paying teachers a good salary enough to where they're able to sustain their families and come in and educate our children to the best capacity. Because our teachers have to make a living, a decent amount of living. And people will be surprised if every person is able to do their part and get a small piece and leave 10% of their inheritance to the school. You would be surprised. I mean, what these insurance policies are able to do for schools like Padilla, schools like Woodward. My child was actually a recipient of an endowment that came from a family when she went to Padilla for high school. I was like, wow, so we just need to understand how the vehicle works. And all we have to do is just allocate a percentage of it and just know that upon our death, we've done our part. And sometimes we don't have the resources while we're living to do the things we want done. But that is how this vehicle is used for those types of reasons. And it's the easiest way to get the job done and to sustain the work, to keep it moving. It's the easiest work. And when you say teachers, a teacher who works for a school really will know internally what needs to be done. They can take out a policy on themselves just to make sure that when they leave, oh, you know what, we need a janitor that's fully paid. We need computers. When with my policy, whether it's at work or outside of work, you buy a policy, put the little small contribution, a little percentage, and leave it to the school. Because $50,000, $20,000 can go far if we're unified in this approach, in this stance.
Thank you.
Yes, and you made a distinction earlier between whole life and term. So talk to us about that, right? Because I know go out insurance, and some people know exactly what you're talking about, and other people are like, I'll just go get a policy. And it sounds like there's a distinction between which one works best.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought that up. I just had a conversation with the sister, a client, and she was upset. She said, man, you mean to tell me my term insurance is getting ready to expire? I'll be 60. I wish I'd have known this sooner because I've wasted all my money. And when I'm 71, I won't have any insurance. And my conversation was, I know, we talked about this 10 years ago. When you made the decision based on money and budget, you could not afford whole life insurance, permanent insurance. You could only afford term because it's significantly cheaper. And I said the need of the insurance always has to be met first. Because if you pass away prematurely and you have 3 children, it does you no good to buy whole life because that's all your money would allow for a very small amount of insurance. You have 3 children under college age that need more, right? They have to be taken care of if you're not here to provide an income for them. So term fits that need. Whereas whole life, it's great because it lasts forever. Sometimes it's out of budget. So people always say, which is better? I say, as long as the need is met, whatever insurance fits that need in that budget is best. Okay. So term, just like the word says, is temporary. It solves a temporary need. So with term, there is time attached to it. You are insured for a specific amount of time. The perfect example would be, you may not have an insurance need that's going to last a lifetime, such as a mortgage, because we all know they're 15 year, 20 year, and 30 years. And when that time is up, the mortgage is paid off. So that amount of insurance to cover that mortgage would suffice in a term for that amount of time, 15-year term, 20-year term, 30-year term, because when the insurance goes away, the debt has already been paid. So it's even killed. Whereas if you know you have a need that is going to last a lifetime, such as I want to make sure that I provide an income to my spouse if I predecease him at any point. I just want to make sure he's good forever. I want to insure myself forever because there is no time frame on that. I don't know when Allah is going to take me. But when that day comes, if it's now or if it's 50 years from now, I know that that insurance is always going to pay out. And whether it be tomorrow or 50 years, my husband will have an income to help sustain. So you have to decide what your need is, the amount that will cover if Allah takes you sooner than later, whether it's provide college funding for my children, help my spouse pay off a mortgage, pay my debt when I go, final expenses, whatever it may be, take care of a mother or father that you've been caring for, making sure they're okay. That may be a permanent need or a temporary need, but it's important that you talk to your insurance person to understand what your need is first and which insurance vehicle is most suitable for that need.
And so in terms of having the monies go to the school system? Is it as easy as like adding in a beneficiary? Is it as simple as that?
Just that easy. It is just that easy. And I've had many people in our community, after having this conversation, have decided, yes, I want to leave the school 10%. I want to leave the match year 25%. It is as easy as just having a tax ID of that institution, the name of that institution, and a percentage that you'd like to leave. And the best part is it avoids probate. There is no probate. Once a death certificate is received, those funds, tax-free, are sent directly to that institution that you allocated on that form. It is just that easy, and it's been done.
Do you also include it in your will as well?
You don't have to. You do not have to put life insurance. Is the one vehicle that almost supersedes a will. It does not have to go inside of a will. Whatever name or institution is listed on that beneficiary form, that suffice. It doesn't have to be in a will at all. They're separate. They're like mutually exclusive. You don't have to have them in a will at all. But you do, the thing with life insurance, not everyone can get it. It's a privilege, not a right. You have to be insurable. And another component that I want to tell people about is the waterfall method that the Rockefellers used. They got insurance on all their grandchildren because it was cheap. And the premiums that they paid were inside of a cash value component of the policy, the whole life, that billed money with dividends. That's how the money grew. They would use the money inside of these children's policies to fund business ventures, to purchase property. They became their own bank. They became their own empowered resource so that they were able to create generational wealth. And then upon the death of someone, the money from the life insurance proceeds was then replenished back into the policy, or they'd purchase a new policy on another family member. So all the kids in the Rockefeller family had insurance policies on them. So, and it was a sustainable method, and it worked.
That's amazing. That's amazing, right? Because when we think about insurance, we don't necessarily think about it being a vehicle to fund our schools. But as we started the conversation, right, the things that we're currently using to try to increase the pot, they're not sustainable, right? We're depending on people in the community with already limited budgets to try to carry the load of the school on their backs. Right. And this is a way. And it's so interesting to me because I do hear people talk about insurance and being able to use it for all types of unique ways of there was a term I was using, like for using equity or for pulling out equity, right? And a lot of times when you hear that, you hear it in relation to maybe a house, your mortgage. But I haven't heard much about it being connected to life insurance until recently. And it's so interesting to me. And I don't necessarily know all the ins and outs. I'm listening to you.
They always tell us, and I say us as in African-American demographics, buy term and invest the difference. If you Google it and say, oh, whole life is, don't buy that whole life. I've never sold a policy that someone could afford that ever regretted it, because it's still here. It's still rolling. But people need to understand you have to be able to afford it. There's so many functionalities of that vehicle. You have to understand all the components of it, the cash value growth, so many components to it. But you just have to understand how it's utilized. I mean, I don't know about you all, but we've been going to janazas every other week, it seems like. I mean, I've been in this community for over 20 years, and it's like every Friday or a day, somebody's passing away. And all I think, because this is what I do, is, wow, imagine if that person had just left a small little piece. Because I believe in the hearts of a Muslim, we love our community. We want to do this. We probably don't know how, and we probably don't even know where it exists. So how can we add them to our beneficiaries and leave a little something behind? But I'm telling you, it will make the world of a difference.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about something really funny personally to me, right? So so I have a whole life and a term, right? And usually with my insurance, when I am getting new insurance, I have 3 children, right? So I'm always like, okay, 33 in terms of the percentage. And then I'm like, somebody getting 34.
I know.
And I'm like, well, now I have a way to like make theirs even and then give the excess to the school.
Yes. And you'd be surprised in insurance world, $25,000 doesn't change the cost much. Like one lady was like, well, that's only $10 more to go from 250,000 to 300,000. I'm like, because in insurance world, 50,000 is equivalent to $5. So if your premium is $100 a month for 250,000, it can be $110 a month, $110 a month for $300. So if I said to someone, you can leave the matched at $50,000 upon your death for $10 a month. If you put it in those terms, they're like, well, wait a minute, $10 a month? Sign me up, right? So you hate to think, oh, I don't want to use my insurance because I'm like betting that I'm going to die. No, actually, it's not, because the calculation on how much you should be insured for is based on your future earnings. So whatever your income is, it's an actual calculation. 20 years from now, what is your worth based on your current income? That's how they figure how much insurance you can have on yourself. So it is a calculated feature. It's not a figure, rather. It's not based on give me $20 million of insurance and lead a match did $5 million. Well, if you make a certain amount of income, that might be reasonable. So again, it's a great way to facilitate a need, because there's a real exigence in our community, which is resources. And it's a great way to leave endowments. And it's a gift that literally will keep on giving. And we almost need the snowball effect. So everybody kind of gets on trend with this, Yeah. So that's the goal.
I agree. I think we do need to start this trend. And so I know for me personally, I'm going to look at my insurance policies and see how we can work this in. And so, Sister Clara, I see you were ready to chime in, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, I love this conversation, and to bring in HUD Williams, because he's also a different kind of investor. So we can look at the idea of annuities and that kind of thing. Vicky Hood as well. Mm-hmm. Can we bring HUD in?
So I don't see him in the waiting room yet. So we'll probably have to come back around to him. But in the meantime, what I want to do is
Omar Ali in there?
Omar is in the waiting room. But before we bring him in, I just wanted to do a check-in. So we do have viewers watching us, and so I just wanted to acknowledge them. For all of our viewers and listeners, feel free to give the salams in the chat, as well as tell us where you're checking in from. We do have a couple of people who have already given the salams. We have Jamila's Yoga Flow Shakir. She says, great and much needed discussion. Mm-hmm. We also have salams from Al Islam in the United States. Rashida is checking in, saying salams to everyone. And we have Brother Anthony, who also gives the salams. And as more people join in, feel free to let us know where you're checking in from, so we get a post feed on that. But Quran, feel free to bring in Brother Omar into the conversation.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
It is a pleasure to be on. Thank you all for having me.
So there's a little lag for Sister Quran.
Thank you for being here. Did you hear Sister Vicky and the thing she?
I did. It's wonderful what Sister Vicky was talking about. Life insurance is something that's big. So she hit the nail right on the head. It's big in our family, and it is something that I think that could bring in additional funds. And so it's great to see her think about that in those particular circumstances. So it's good that it come out of it.
Good. And so tell us more about you and what you do, and also what tools or what techniques do you think could come from the work you do to help benefit and support the school's finances and sustainability?
Okay, so I own a structural steel fabrication company. Two things. I own a structural steel fabrication company that we operate in 18 different countries for the U.S. government, but we are shifting over to real estate development to where we acquire commercial buildings or build commercial buildings and put tenants in our commercial buildings. And so as you all was talking, I was thinking about, I think a lot of time our schools and masjids don't look at the real estate component of it. So my approach, a lot of people may not agree with this. I think schools should be run like a business and put charity to the side, in my opinion. Put charity in the back thought. How can we run it as a business as though I've led all of my business that particular way? And so one of the things that come to mind is real estate. How can we tie into a real estate component to the school, something that's at market rate, although we want to help people in the community, but how can we tie real estate to it at a market rate and have those particular funds come back to the school, commercial and on the residential side, but more so on the commercial side. And I'm struggling a bit to figure out how I can tie the work I do into the school because it's such a tangible thing. In order to get the real estate, you have to raise the money to get the real estate. And so I'm interested if you guys want to chime in to give me some advice. What are you guys thinking? But my main thing would be real estate.
Yeah, and so that's like one of those pieces that you like how you just described it, in that like we have to get the money up to get the real estate. I know a lot of the schools, many of them operate out of the masjid, right? And their goal is to be able to have their own facilities. And so that's something that many of the schools are trying to work through, or perhaps even having buildings that need some additional TLC, or maybe they need to relocate. And so I know many institutions are sort of working through that. There were some ideas though that have been presented to us in terms of like securing properties and maybe like flipping them so that we could take the equity. And so what do you think about something like that?
I think that would be great, securing the property. So, and I think the name of the game in real estate is debt. A lot of people don't look at it that particular way. So for an example, we have a building that's appraised at right around 7 million, one of our properties. Let's say if you had $4 million equity in it. So you have a choice to make. You have $4 million worth of equity. Do you take all of that equity now? Or do you just allow the building to bring in income? I say take all of the equity now. So for this particular building, it brings in about $500,000 a year. In order for us to even get close to that, it would take us 8 years. And so take that money ASAP because you can do things with it. A lot of people look at real estate the opposite and try to stay away from debt. But there's ways that you can structure it to where you want that particular debt and you want that debt quickly. And another thing that I think that people don't look into is that cities have great programs. The city of DeKalb, city of Atlanta has great programs that most people don't realize. So a prime example, we closed on a loan. It's called CPACE loan. Very easy. If you're going to put anything energy efficient into the school, the city will loan you money and they will immediately amortize it over 30 years. And then they will put it on your tax bill immediately. And the good thing about programs like that, you will have people coming to you trying to give you the money, because if you get approved for the CPACE, very simple ways. And so oftentimes what I have done to achieve just a little success in the real estate market is utilize some of these city programs that we don't know about, just the same way like in the past that you guys have had grant writers. If you had someone focusing on a lot of the city programs, they're there. And sometimes they're easy to take advantage of it. But back to the real estate part of it, I think that like the Aliyah Lakewood building that we have, it's very important to understand once you get the real estate, it's not charity, not in the least bit. And so even when we have the Ali building, we came just under market rate. And unfortunately, even for our own people, if they could not afford that just under market rate, then too bad. And the reason why I say that, because we have an operation to run, and if we did that in a charity way, it would be a disservice to everyone else that's in our building. Now, everyone in our building are Black-owned tenants. And so we sought those particular Black-owned tenants that did have the financial wherewithal to place something close to market rate. Market rate was $22 a square foot. We discounted it down to $17, $18, which is still a discount. And so oftentimes I think our people, we want to go even lower than that because our hearts are in the right place. But that's the wrong way to run the business, because the ultimate goal is to build a school. And the only way to build that particular school is through economic means, not through charity. We'll continue to go around and around, fish fry after fish fry, going to the community to raise money until where people they get kind of tired of that. But if we run like a business and stick to that, even if we do hurt the feelings of some of our own dear brothers and sisters, but the long run gain of that is going to be much better to where we have something like a Woodward in the community, or any other private schools that have grown significantly.
Brother Omar.
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome. Thank you for being here. Your information
Yes, ma'am.
right on time. Do we lose when the school get involved in running like a business? Will we lose our
501
status? Yeah, our status of a nonprofit, or do we have to? What happens to paying taxes or not, as opposed to not paying taxes? So, how does that happen? How does that affect us?
So a lot of people look at nonprofits as if you can't make money, but that's not true. Look at nonprofit as a way to make money, and you just don't have to pay taxes on that money. And it's just sitting in your account. So you won't lose that particular status. It's almost like saying Red Cross, any of these large charities that run effectively like a business, but they all have their 501c3 or 501c4 status. So you won't lose it at all. We just have to have the stomach to run it that particular way to where we want to make money. At the end of the year, we want to have a lot of money in the bank account so that we can do something. We can build a wing on the school, or we will be in a position to truly give scholarships away, but make money. We always look at nonprofits the wrong way, that you can't make money with it. We have a nonprofit, and we utilize the nonprofit solely to put our profit into. And that's the way it should be established.
I like that.
Yes, and I appreciate you for sharing that. My master's degree is in nonprofit management, right? And I get so many people who have that misconception about nonprofits and them not making money. And I'm actually a grant writer for a large nonprofit that is probably $66 million in revenue, right? That it's just like, yeah, that's money.
And I tell people, they don't think about it. If I'm not mistaken, one of our largest health insurance provider is, I think it's Kaiser, that's nonprofit. And so when you think about that, you have billion-dollar corporations that are nonprofits. And so you're absolutely right. Yes.
Okay, so we do have some questions in the chat, and we want to bring those up. So I have one from Sister Michelle, who actually she is with the New Africa Umma School Online. So we do have online schools in our network. For those who are not aware, we have 2 of them that I could bring to mind right now, and she's a part of one. And her question is, do you know about cooperative real estate buying?
I do. Cooperative real estate, the best way to look at it is that narrow it down to people that you know and trust. Never do crowdfunding, in my opinion. It doesn't go right. There's just too many things to go with it. So let's just say the 5 of us on the call, we cooperate to buy real estate. That is the best way to look at it, and not the cooperative real estate that everyone else is doing, to where they're trying to raise money for their cause. In essence, it's a lie. You raise money from tens of thousands of people in the hope that they're going to get a return on it, but real estate developers like myself, we know that there's never going to be a return on that particular money because there's no way it can be a return with that many particular people. So I would say narrow it down to very close friends or family that you know and trust, and you guys put your power in together cooperatively and collectively to do it. That's the best way.
Excellent. And so, and I assume with that cooperative real estate buying is that basically you're buying a property with someone and you're going to share in the proceeds. Is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
okay?
It's just that quick. You have a partnership. You decide what the split is going to be. In essence, is the end goal is to bring money in. But it's easier. I learned a long time ago when I first started my steel company. I wanted to do it all by myself. I was a little young and naive, but you quickly learn that it takes longer to get to that particular point. It's okay to take less profits and bring on strong partnerships, and that's the mind state that I'm in now. To a lot of the properties we have 2 or maybe 3 partners that we know each other very well, and we all put in on it. And sometimes it's just me and my father, and sometimes we bring in very close friends.
Dr. Patricia, I can't hear you, but I see your mouth moving.
That's because I have my mic off.
Okay.
But Dr. Brother Omar, what is the way a school, I hear the cooperative and that sounds good, but what is a way that a school can actually acquire property?
So it's no different than how I can acquire property. So the Mohammed schools, of course, we're not ready for that yet. But if it did ever get to the point, it's just no different than anyone acquiring property. You just acquire it, and then of course we have plenty of people in the community that can set up a trust that we can put it in a trust to kind of shield it a little. But it's no different than you going out to buy a property. 501c3s and schools can acquire properties.
And that's a good point.
In fact, once you get to the level to where the school has a lot of money and you're trying to mitigate that money, that would be a good time to buy the property at that particular point.
Okay.
So after we sold enough fish and had enough gala dinners, then
it's not sustainable. It really isn't. One thing that I think from a business standpoint, we have a lot of young people in the community that are doing great at business. I think that we have like our father generation, and I think there was a gap in between that. And then the younger people, they got it, And I'll tell everyone, and oftentimes you'll hear me say this when I'm speaking, in the United States, there is 43 million Blacks. If we taught 10% of our youth to start their business with the intent of having employees, not consultants, start your business with the intent to have employees. That's 4.3 million business. And then if we tell each one of those business, you got to have a minimum of 3 people. That's 12.9 million people we just employed within our own race. And when you think about that, the significance of that, now we have a lot of people that have their own business that have the wherewithal to give money back, to donate money back. So we have to get our businesses to the point to do that. Again, people like my father age and older, they did it. But now it's the youth time. And I do think the master have great business people that's coming up. And we have meetings on this quite often to where we talk about what can be done from the school perspective, what can be done to increase businesses in our community. No fish fry. There's nothing wrong with that. And no, there's nothing wrong with selling fruit. I get that. I love that. We need that. But sustainable business with employees that can write a check at a particular point.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that too. And it sounds like for both the insurance route as well as the real estate route, the foundation is to like have big thinking, right? And I love my fish sandwich, so we're definitely going to continue to appreciate the fish sandwiches, but it sounds like we're asking people or encouraging people to have a bigger vision as it relates to the type of financial impact that we could be making in our communities. These are things that we're engaging in regardless, right? We have life insurance, so you know it's not something that's completely new to us, and so we're saying here's a unique and innovative way to utilize it for the benefit of the school. And many of us are purchasing
and then
homes as
also,
investment property, and so here's a unique way to look at that as a vehicle for funding schools. Go ahead, you were going to add
you know, I
something.
was gonna also be diligent by coordinating and working with the cities. I can tell you the city of Atlanta, and I know the match is in DeKalb, but the city of Atlanta end up giving about $500,000 worth of grant for someone to relocate their school to an underutilized area. So you have programs like that that we just don't know about, that we just have to look for. And I go back to the CPACE program. I never knew about that program, and many blacks didn't, but it was on the books for quite some time, and it's remarkable. Think about closing on a loan within 30 to 60 days. It by law is amortized over 30 years by law. And then because of the type of program, we had banks coming to us to want to loan us the money. We could pick and choose that which bank we wanted to go with. So have somebody to look at some of these programs that cities have or counties have, and it's quite a bit.
Yeah, that's some good advice too, right? Because there are things right in our vicinity that we just don't know, and so that goes into being engaged civically, right? Having those relationships and connections in your city, in your county. A lot of times we're very insular, right? And we're very secluded, and so we have to come outside of the the four walls to start to build those relationships, because in reality, you know, to just go and ask for money for somebody you don't have a relationship with, it's kind of unrealistic, right? If somebody walked up to you and was like, can I borrow $20, you'd be looking at them like they're crazy, because you don't know them, you don't have a relationship, you don't know what their potential for success or failure happens
That
to
is a
be.
problem that we have in the community, because I can count on my hand at least 10 people that have those particular relationships, including myself. But we're isolated. We're all working in our same bubble, and we're just not communicating enough. It's just like great relationships now with the new CEO of DeKalb. You know, the mayor. It's just like we know so many people in our community, from the imam down to me, that have those particular great relationships, and we're just not communicating enough from the business side to everyone who have those relationships.
I think that's where the community comes in too, because if you are a teacher or a principal, it's kind of hard for you to go out there and do that handshaking and getting to know the city mayor and all of those people. But if the people in the community, they can be an extension of the school. There are people who work in the city, or people who are politicians, or people Muslim who are in those fields and in those areas, that they can look at this school as their business. Is something, this is important to me, and I know the city is doing this, and I know this person, that I can help our school by having a relationship or developing a relationship with this person, or finding out what we can do for our schools. I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
that it's like a community effort, you know, because the principal and maybe the social studies teacher, those teachers, they don't have that kind of time. They are stuck not stuck, but they're in their classroom taking care of the children. And
I
so
get
these
that.
people on the community people will probably have the ability to do that faster and better than the people within the school system.
I have a question. I don't know if it's the right question to ask. The school, does it evaluate things based upon should the tuition be increased or decreased, just like a business would at some particular point?
So I would say yeah, I would say, and the other thing I just want us to keep in mind as we're having this conversation is that, so we're the Clara Muhammad Schools Network, right? So we're a network of about 20 schools at this point. So this is schools all across the country and Bermuda. And
Okay.
this, the circumstances are different depending on where we're talking about the school, you know, in the country. So we have
Okay.
Milwaukee. I'm in Newark, New Jersey. Dr. Patricia's in Miami. We have North Carolina, Charlotte. We Greensboro as well. We have I can't even remember them all.
Philadelphia.
We have Philadelphia, Atlanta, of course,
Yeah.
and a few other places around the country. And
LA.
so LA as well, right? And so what is happening in those locales could be different, but the ultimate goal is for us to be doing that evaluation to the yes, absolutely.
I have a question, Brother Omar. So hypothetically, let's say there were a group of people who wanted to invest and buy property and take the proceeds or the residual income from the property and donate it or give it to the school. Do the owners of that specific real estate property have to list that piece of property under the school's 501(c), or can it just be, should it just stay separate from the school where the proceeds from the income from the property goes to the school as a non-taxable event? Like how would people outside of the school get together, collaborate, form some type of strategic alliance where they're purchasing properties where the income from those properties, albeit sale of the property, rental income from the property, all of those funds are funneled back to the school? How could a young group of private investors who don't really have much knowledge in real estate get that done?
So if I were the school, I would set up a totally separate organization for profit owned by the school.
Okay.
That way they can control those particular funds as they come in. And let's say if it was me and you, we had property and we wanted to donate some of those proceeds, then we would just donate those proceeds to the for-profit entity. Although that for-profit entity is going to have to pay taxes on it, that is okay. It can make a decision what it wants to do, if they want to donate 100% of it to the school or keep it in the for-profit in case there's something that the school can't do. It's a pretty easy thing. I wouldn't donate it directly to the school unless the school knew exactly what it wants to do with it because of different implications.
So the school should set up that like a funnel to receive the funds.
Yes.
Okay.
And then from that for-profit entity. I'm sorry, say that again.
What was the name of what the school should set up in order to be the recipient of the funds?
So it can be, here's how I would do it. It may be just a little complicated. I would set up a foundation, and I will have that foundation to own an LLC. And then I will have that money to go into the LLC.
Okay.
And the reason I would set it up that way, that foundation have certain rights and controls that most LLCs wouldn't have, and it's protected just a little more.
I got you.
That's a great question.
That makes sense. Because a lot of times it's the how. Like people have resources now. They just don't know. They have the ideals, but they don't know how to implement the plan. And that's what I think the most important thing is, the implementation and the facilitation of all the ideas so we can put it in motion. And make it as efficient as possible and easy as possible.
And as you were saying, that was making me think of our foundation that we have set up in our family, because it's set up to protect generations to come.
Right.
And it's also set up to protect us against the government to a certain extent, to where it makes it just a little more difficult for them. And I think most schools are set up that way with foundations, and then they have the nonprofit and the for-profit side.
Yeah, that was an excellent question. I appreciate you, Sister Victoria.
So it's a lot of ways to do it, and then you can do it the old school.
Again, as I work with people, when I work with people and we do their financial planning, I always tell them, let's plan with a purpose. It's not just about the plan, but what's the purpose of the plan? Because then you get more enthusiastic about it, to fulfill the purpose. And so while we're implementing and planning, I like to utilize all sorts of resources that people have, like Sister Clara mentioned annuities, well, your retirement plans, your 401ks. These are all assets. Oftentimes don't even go spent. They pass away prior to any of these assets being used, but just having a purpose and an earmark for all of those assets that you've obtained through your working years or inheritance or wherever. Let's strategize by way of this. What Brother Omar was talking about. This is just another conversation for families who have the means and just want to use other alternatives, whether or not it's annuities, life insurance, whatever it is. This just gives them another platform to segue a resource back to the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it sounds like the school needs a financial planner. In addition to the other people on there, they need a financial planner on the board, or a financial planner working for them.
Yeah.
Because I'd never heard of this, and when you mentioned it, it sounds so reasonable, so logical.
Yeah,
they do. Because once you get the money, you always have to know going up the mountain, accumulating wealth is one thing, but the biggest factor is people don't know. Most people die going down the mountain, spending the money, because there's so many other things that can happen, and liabilities coming down, taxes, that you have to be mindful of. So it's not just accumulating the wealth, it's going up. We know how we have it. Now, how do we build it? And then how do we push it out? How do we pay it? How do we endow, So this plays a very big role.
Right.
Yeah. And I think this conversation is a great one, right? We just haven't been looking at these types of strategies for funding our schools. And so we have about 8 minutes left to the program. And so I just wanted to do a quick check-in. You are watching The Power of Educating Our Own. We are having a discussion about funding our institutions, our schools in particular. We've been talking about life insurance as a vehicle. We've been talking about real estate as a vehicle. And now we have Brother Hud Williams with us. And I know Sister Clara was having some delay, so maybe she'll be able to bring you in. But I know, I believe for Brother Hud, we were going to have a discussion about endowments. Am I correct? He's like, I don't know.
I'm ready to discuss anything.
Okay. So let's start here. Tell us who you are, what you do, and some strategies that you see will be helpful for financing our schools.
So definitely, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Mohammed and Fatimi ma ughliq wa khatimi ma sabaq nasr haqq hadi. So assalamu alaikum. My name is Hud Williams. I am a regional manager for Amana Mutual Funds. So Amana Mutual Funds is the oldest and largest Sharia compliant mutual fund in the US, and almost like the second largest in the world. And so basically what we do is that we provide a pathway for Muslims to do the things that's important for their future, to save, to invest, to make sure that their family's going to have money after they're gone, to make sure that their money is working for them, but to do so in a way that's aligned with our faith. Often people say, hey, Hood, this is 2024. Things are different. The economy is different. Those rules about our religion, about faith, need to be updated. And that may be true. But when you think about, if you ask yourself, would you work at a brewery? If you ask yourself, would you work at a casino? For most people of the Muslim faith, they would say, no, those things are not aligned with our faith. And so why would you want to own it in your portfolio? So alhamdulillah, we have a way to filter out companies where their values don't align with our values. And then we have for folks to invest, and we have a different range of investments from very conservative to pretty aggressive. And so you could do those things that are best for your future. So when we think about this, we think about this as an individual. So we think about preparing for retirement, right? We think about how do we save for education for our children. But in addition to those individual goals, then we also have goals as institutions. And so one of the things that we've been working on pretty substantially in 2024 is helping Islamic organizations or nonprofit organizations twofold. The first one is we help them engage their donors in a way that makes their donors' generosity more efficient. So, for example, if a donor wants to give 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, and they have already been investing for a while, they're going to have appreciated assets. So maybe they bought Tesla at 10,000, now it's worth 80. So by donating that, instead of donating cash, that you avoid capital gains tax. So if you have $80,000, you donate that to a 501c3, they get the full write-off value. Even though you spent $10,000, that's what we call the cost basis. They're going to get the 80,000, and because they're a 501c3, they can sell it, take the $80,000 in cash, and not have to pay taxes to the government. The donor gets an $80,000 write-off for the $10,000 that they spent, and if they really love that investment, they can go buy the investment again at a higher cost basis, so that later on when they sell it, they pay less taxes because their cost basis went from 10 to 80. And so in order to kind of take advantage of this, organizations have to have a brokerage account. So it's not, it's not a huge thing to have a brokerage account, but it's almost like what is in your nonprofit tool belt, right? So if you have this account, you don't have to call me when a brother like Brother Omar says he wants to donate $50,000. You don't have to call me to go get that account because you're already ready. They're like they say in our culture, if you stay ready, you don't got to get ready.
Right.
So that's number one. Number two, we need to start thinking about investing for our future, especially for our institutions, right? One of the things that these institutions, like our families, might have money that's just sitting in the bank, right? I call that lazy money. I call it lazy because it's not working for you, right? So we all work hard for our money, and we should have our money just as working hard for us, right? So the money is sitting in the bank account, gaining 1% or 2% interest, and that could be questionable, but also, and additionally, it's not doing anything for you. And so our investments will have your money working for you, right? So you think about it, people have lazy, haram money. And so we want you to have halal, hardworking money. And so we have a collection of mutual funds. So we have 4 different mutual funds because people's level of risk kind of varies. And so we have a very conservative fixed income fund, and we have a fund that's looking at growth companies, and we also have a fund that's directed more towards the developing world or international markets. And so you can combine these funds at any kind of amount, and so you can get investments for yourself. So in our returns, our Money Growth Fund, which is our best performing fund out of the 4, it's almost 15.7%. And so just to kind of break that down, there's a rule called the rule of 72. So this is like an investment hack. Sister Victoria, she knows all about it. And so when you think about your money, right? So if an organization has $40,000 sitting in their checking account, if you have an investment, right, and you have a rate of return, say you have a rate of return of 10%. So 72 divided by 10 is 7.2. So on average, your money will double every 7.2 years. So if you have $40,000 in the bank now, in 7 years, it will be 80. In another 7 years, it will be 160. And so this is how endowments, like when you look at the Harvards of the world, when you look at the Yales of the world, when they have billions of dollars, and their billions of dollars is growing by 10, 20, 30%. And so it's almost like you could never catch up. So, we have to be courageous enough or knowledgeable enough, right? Because we often talk about generational wealth, but you can't have
Yes.
generational wealth until you have generational knowledge.
That's right.
To be knowledgeable enough to make sure that our community is also taking advantage of these best practices in the industry.
Mr. Hud, first of all, let me say I personally own Amana Fund. And in 2008, when I was having conversations with clients who had lost 25% of their assets in the 401k, me personally, on the other scope of that, had a lot of my funds in an Amana Fund outside of my 401k.
Yeah.
And it did really well, even through the turbulence and volatile times of 2008 to 2011. The fund not only made me rest well at night because I knew it was Sharia compliant. And in my line of work, I don't just go around, advertising Amana Fund. It's Sharia compliant, but they're like, what is that? But for me personally, it was wonderful for me to share with my son when he had to pick his investments. I said, you should invest in the Amana Fund. And here's why, as a Muslim man. And so personally, it's an amazing fund. And I've sent a lot of referrals your way, just so you know. But aside to that,
it's testimonial.
You made a good point. You made a good point on lazy money. And to all of our listeners, this is very important. Right now, and you can attest to this, Hud, you're not going to have a better interest earning savings account than in today's time. Over my 20 years of doing this, I have never had lazy money work so well, where I'm able to pay my child who's in college his allowance from the interest that I earn, which is over $500 a month from the money, the lazy money. So if anyone listening has money just sitting in a checking or savings account, if that money is not getting you 4% or more annually, where you're seeing the interest being put in your account every month, then you're in the wrong account. That money is being it's dormant. It needs to wake up. You need to move it. City, I think Capital One has a good one. American Express High Yield has an amazing savings account. High yield savings. You can open it up online. It's been safe for me. And it's paying right now 4.10% annually, and you get your interest monthly. And you can literally take the interest and give it to the school, help pay a student's tuition, add it to the teacher's salary fund. There's ways where your money that's just sitting idle can play a part. So these are things that you can do right now to make a difference.
So what about the financial scaredy cats? Who are we connecting them with? And before we go, we want you all to share with us how to connect with you all. But for the scaredy cats, and I might be one, I might have a little finger up, right? But because there would be a lot of people who would say, well, I don't know how to do what you're explaining with insurance, or I don't know how to get into what you just said about real estate, or how to get a brokerage account for the school to, start investing in mutual funds. So do I find somebody? Like, how do I navigate it? What are we telling them?
I'm sure you can call me. This is what I do. And I always tell people it's not, a lot of people are afraid because they assume they don't have enough. But in my bio, it says, my motto is do what you can with what you have where you are. You take it baby steps because it wasn't built in a day. So you do what you can with what you have where you are. And I do a financial snapshot. So I see exactly where you are, where the red flags lie. We work on a little bit of risk management. And then from there, we try to accumulate wealth. Money that you have sitting idle, we find a place to put it. And money that you have sitting idle that you're willing to part ways with for at least 1 to 5 years, that's where the Amana Fund comes into play. And trust me, it's and I'm not here and I can't legally say it's the best investment, but personally, it has done amazing for me. And again, it rests well with my soul and my moral compass. And it makes me feel good investing in a fund, like he said, that aligns with who I am and how I want to represent myself. So you just have to have that conversation, get on the phone, and let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think when you talk about being scared, one of our family has 5 values, right? And one of our 5 values is always have courage. And I talk to my sons about really what is courage. And courage is not being afraid or not understanding that fear exists, right? But courage is saying, hey, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do, irrespective of this fear I have, right? Because fear is not real. Fear is just a feeling. You know, danger is real, risk is real, but fear is not real. And so just taking those first steps, just calling Victoria, just calling myself, calling other people you know, and saying, you know, no one is telling you if you got $10,000, give us 9,990, right? We're going to start with 1,000, you know. And one of the things that we have done over the years at Amana Mutual Fund is that to open an account with us, we lower that amount to $100. Right? Like most folks are like, they're not even thinking about $100, right? Most companies, they want $250 just to buy. In order to buy our funds in Fidelity, you have to invest in like $250. And so the $100 is so that we can see how your money is working for you. Once, we have an account for my son, and I show him the statements, and he's like, okay, daddy, like, why did it go down? I don't like when it goes down. And I say, well, son, nobody likes when it goes down. And so that you understand, it's like, hey, there's going to be risk. There's going to be ups and downs in the market. And so that's why, like Sister Victoria said, we're not trying to tell you to go put your grocery money in the market, right? Keep your grocery money for groceries, right? But you have to carve out a little bit saying, hey, I'm okay with taking a risk with this. And then you see how it works, you see how it works. And you're going to be like, oh, well, if I put in, I could have got, what was I thinking? And then we want people to be knowledgeable, sophisticated investors, because we want them to be comfortable with the risk. Once you're comfortable with the risk, you have a lot more kind of, conviction when you're going in, right? So you feel a lot more, you feel a lot more comfortable. So, we're definitely not going to, and especially you have people you trust. You have people who've been in the community. You've known them for years. We're going to see you, right? You would be surprised the number of times I go into a community and someone tells me, hey, well, I got this investment. It's in credit default crypto swaps. I'm okay. Do you know what it is? They don't know what it is. And they said, but it doubles every week. And I said, it doubles every week? And I said, this is what's going to happen. It's going to double for 3 weeks. And then you're going to call your grandma and be like, grandma, give me all your money. And then once you get all the money for grandma, you're going to put it in, you're going to lose everything. And then no one's going to see you for 4 years, right? That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about reputable companies, reputable investments. Amana Mutual Funds, we opened our first fund in 1986. It's almost 40 years. And we're talking about making practical decisions. We're not talking about investing the farm. We're not talking about betting on red. Hey, we're going to move 100% in red. Folks would tell me before the election or after the election, it's like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I said, hey, look, we're looking for long term, right? We want you to gain wealth, over the course of the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, right? Because true wealth creation happens over time. It's not something you just going to put it all on red. And I know I'm talking because I was a little late because of, Central and Eastern Standard Time. But I was talking to a Muslim brother, and he said, well, Hood, when I'm investing, I'm looking for 30, 40, 50% returns. And I said, nobody gets 30% returns. And so he's like, I feel like I'm so behind. So people, it's like if you were playing baseball and you're behind 6 runs, then every time you swing, you're swinging for a home run. So it's like you just swinging, because all your hope is in this one investment. And we have to move to a place where we understand generational wealth is going to grow over time. It's going to be able, Sister Victoria worked with my late mother-in-law, may Allah have mercy on her, that she can pass down wealth to her children. So her children have a way to kind of jumpstart their economic future or kind of have additional money to invest. And I remember one of the things that Sister Marjorie told me. She said, I'd rather spend this money to my children than trying to spend an extra healthcare for them in my life. I'd
Mm-hmm.
rather give this money to my children so they can buy a home, so they can invest, so they can have things for them and their family. And so, you know, we can't think that we're behind, that we have to catch up in a year or 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got to get base hits. And after you get a base hit, you get another base hit. And after a while, we're not trying to catch up with anybody. This is not a race. We're just trying to do what's in the best interest for ourselves and our families. And it's going to take some time.
That's right.
And there's nothing wrong with, you know, growing your wealth over time. Unless you're 6'6" and got a beautiful jump shot, you're gonna have to grow. You're gonna have to grow it over time, you know, because 6'6", now you gotta be like 6'10" and have a good jump shot. Because if you
Really
6 foot and you got a good jump shot,
That's short. That's short, right? Yeah, those are some really good gems that you all have just shared with us. You know, these money conversations are ones that, as a community as a whole, that we tend to shy away from. And so here, on the Power of Educating Our Own, we want to continue to have more of these conversations. So, as was said, like, we get comfortable with it, right? We understand the risk that we're taking, and we're comfortable with making it for the benefit of the gain that we're intending to receive, and also being able to use those funds to help sustain our schools, our masjids, and the like, and just having some new and innovative ways to fund our success. And so I appreciate all of you for all the things that you shared. For our viewers and our listeners, if you have any last minute questions you want to go ahead and throw in the comments, we want to take the opportunity to do that. I know there was a question. This is a good conversation. This is from Sister Michelle. This is a good conversation. We can put this info from both into action. I'm gonna say all three, because at the time she left that comment, we just had Sister Victoria and Brother Omar. So we can put all three of those points of information into action: the mutual funds, the insurance, and the real estate. Sister Jamila says it's level up time.
yeah,
Right,
you know,
gotta go up.
the one of
Yes,
the
go
things
ahead.
that I was thinking about, and Sister Patricia and Sister Kron heard me talk about this at a leadership conference for Islamic schools last week, and is that Islamic schools owe it to the teachers and to their staff that they really need to start investing in them and investing in their retirement. You know, many people who have given their life to educate our children and are going into retirement with GoFundMe's. And, we have in our culture, we have the saying, you got to give them their flowers while they're alive. And so, we have to kind of make retirement planning, part and parcel of, if you're working for someone. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when thinking about justice to your employee, he said, pay your employee or the people who work for you before their sweat dries. So the idea is that you have to take care of these people who are in your charge. And so if we think about retirement, and it's not even expensive, like we have a retirement plan that's zero admin costs, and employers can put 2%. Right. So if you have a $500,000 budget, that's $10,000, right? And then the employee can put in money, and then they have something to kind of see, to kind of look to. I remember Sister Quran asked me to do a workshop. This is probably a decade ago, about how you can get wealthy on a teacher's salary. And I was like, oh, I don't even know that, right? When I think about retirement as, being more, if you have a small salary, right? The idea of in retirement, and Sister Victoria can back me up, is that you want 70 to 80% of your salary when you're working. That's how much you need for retirement. right? So if you do have a small income, then you don't need as much to kind of replace your income in retirement. And so by starting with an investment account, with a simple IRA or with a 401k, it gives these teachers their flowers while they're alive. And we don't have to kind of do a GoFundMe or do another thing because this teacher's went 10, 20, 30 years at a school and they still can't, pay their bills afterwards. And especially if they're not contributing Social Security. Some teachers are not contributing Social Security, so that's not going to be there. And so we really have to kind of make this a priority. And then my last point, and I'm sorry, I apologize, is that educational savings. So whether it's a 529, whether it's an educational savings account, putting money for your child's education, putting money away. And so in both the 529 and the educational savings account, it doesn't have to be used for college. It could be used for primary and secondary school. So it can be used to pay the Muslim school down the street. And your money is investing and it's going to grow tax-free. So that means that you don't have to pay taxes on dividends. You're not going to have to pay taxes on capital gain. And so this is another kind of nugget that, we have this illustration that if you replace your fancy cup of coffee when your child is born, for me, it's a pumpkin spice latte. My fault. I know people hate. I'm going to ask for it dirty. That means a shot of espresso in it. So dirty pumpkin spice latte. If I replace that, so that's $5 a day, $25 a week, $100 a month, and let's just say $1,000 a year. If I replace that by the time my child is born and put this in a savings account, an investment account form, at a 7% rate of return, by the time he's 18, I'll have $34,000 in that account, right? So it's like, and that $34,000, it can go to tuition, and go to room and board, and go to other things. So we have to think like long term. And if you can't put in $5, put in $100, put in $200. And we want folks to, the inertia of not calling Sister Victoria, not setting up appointment, not setting up a one-on-one. Oftentimes the idea of getting their money right is the number 4 thing on their list. And so what happens when they finish 1, 2, and 3, and then they move to number 4, there's another 1, there's another 2, there's another 3. So take out a week, take out a day to say, hey, I'm going to make a call. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to talk to someone about putting my financial life in order, saving, investing for my family, retirement, children's education, so on and so forth.
I appreciate you for sharing all of that. Those are just things that, the average person is not thinking about as it relates to what to do with their finances, and particularly the piece about giving the teachers their flowers now, right? What our teachers do in our school system, it's unmatched, right? Sister Victoria doesn't know, but our children actually know each other. They went to Howard University together, and my daughter was with you all for the graduation. Anissa.
No way.
Yeah, and so I only mentioned that because
what's your daughter's name?
Yeah, Anissa.
No way, Anissa's your daughter. Oh, I love Anissa. She stayed at my house.
Yes, she's telling me now to tell you that. And I only brought that up because I remember her having a conversation with your son about the Mohammed schools, right, and his experience there. And I was telling her, I was trying to send you there, and you didn't want to go, and all of that. And so the impact that our teachers and our institutions have on our children, it's unmatched and sometimes indescribable. And so to be able to give them what they're worth, or even something close to it, I love the fact that Hood has shared a way to do that. So before we go, if each of you can share a way that the community can get in contact with you, whichever way you are most comfortable with. If you can share that with our viewers, Imam Nadir, he is the head of a school in Detroit. And I'm out at Class Academy. I almost lost the name of it. He's saying great info. Thanks so much to all. And so we love you, Imam Nadir. We haven't seen him in a little while, but I'm grateful that he's on and watching us today. I think his school is probably one of our largest in the network. He has about 200 plus in student enrollment. And so we're trying to get all those schools to that and higher. But feel free to share your information with the viewers as we prepare to close out.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll go first. You can call me at, I'm just going to give you my personal cell number, because I do believe when we speak with finances, it's personal. And I want all of my clients to feel like it's personal, because it is. My number is 678-200-3706. You can also Google the Piedmont Group of Atlanta, and you'll find my email and all my information about me as an advisor on there. That's the Piedmont, P-I-E-D, Mont, M-O-N-T, Group of Atlanta. And again, my number is 678-200-3706.
For me, the same thing. You can give me a call on my cell phone, which is 404-490-7320. Or you can email me also at Omar at Steel, S-T-E-E-L, Fab, F-A-B, F-E.com.
I gotta put my personal information on now. No, Bismillah. My contact info is 202-285-6672. That's 202-285-6672. My email address is h.williams. So h.williams at Saturna, SATURNA, Saturna.com.
Thank you so much. And we appreciate all of you for being with us this evening. You are watching The Power of Educating Our Own. Tonight, we have discussed some financial strategies for financing our schools. We've talked about life insurance and being able to use the funds for that to have the schools be our beneficiary. We talked about real estate and buying property and using the equity from that to be able to help to support our schools. And we've also talked about mutual funds as a way to build up money to fund our schools as well. And so those are three strategies that we've discussed tonight. And inshallah, God willing, we'll have another show next week where we'll talk about a few more strategies. But I just want to thank our guests again for coming on to tonight and having this discussion. We went a little bit over, but when it gets good, you just have to do that, right? We're in no rush to leave, particularly when we're being blessed with things that we didn't think about before that could help our situation. Dr. Patricia, Sister Quran, if there's anything you want to share before we close out, feel free to do that.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to thank our guests. We have gotten a wealth of information this evening, and inshallah, God willing, our schools will take advantage of your services and your information and help grow our schools in a wealthy, healthy way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Walaikum assalam.
And I just want to, I know my connection is splotchy because this is a subject that is dear to my heart. So thank all of you for being here. I'm really grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you all for having us.
Absolutely. It's been a great conversation. And so The Power of Educating Our Own comes on every Sunday at 7 p.m. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're streaming a couple of different platforms. We're streaming to New Freedom Network. We're streaming to New Freedom Exchange, both on Facebook and on YouTube. We're also streaming to the Muslim Journal's YouTube, and very soon we'll be streaming to our own Clara Muhammad Schools Network, both Facebook and YouTube. And until next Sunday, Assalamu alaikum. May God's peace be with you.
Like salam.
Sister Clara Muhammad, a black Muslim woman from Macon, Georgia, was an extraordinary leader and pioneer. Her contributions, especially in the development of Islamic education in America, paved the way for thousands of Muslim families to take ownership of their children's future, starting at a time when homeschooling was illegal in the United States. She eventually established a network of schools that was later named Sister Clara Muhammad Schools in her honor by her late son, Imam Warith Din Muhammad, rahimahullah. Sister Clara Muhammad helped to establish the important role women had in early Muslim American history and was an inspiration to future generations of leaders. Without her, there would not have been a nation of Islam, or the unique Sunni Muslim community that evolved from it, one that was acutely aware of the concerns and aspirations of women. May Allah have mercy on Sister Clara Muhammad.